This is the Nomadic Traveler Podcast. Welcome to Nomadic Traveler Podcast. I am your host, Jason, and our lovely and wonderful and goofy co-host is here.
Nicole.
I don't know. I just wanted to switch it
Is
up a
that
little
me?
bit. You don't think so?
Nicole, question mark?
It's always like the same thing every time.
I do. I like that. Goofy. Okay.
I don't know how to change it, though. So
All right. Let's see how it is. I like it.
maybe we should write a new thing for you.
For me?
Instead of it being lovely and wonderful, you know.
Am I not lovely and wonderful anymore?
Fantastic and congenial. I don't know.
What? All right. Moving along. Who do we have today, Jason?
We have Teresa, right?
Yes.
And she's going to talk to us about budget travel
Yes.
I
About
believe.
how she travels on the cheap.
on the cheap.
Yeah.
So she's got all the good tips for us, huh?
Yes, she does. And she has her own podcast called Gateway to Dreams.
What is that about?
It is a podcast about interpreting dreams. So if you have any interesting dreams or reoccurring dreams, she'll kind of help you figure out what they mean.
Do you have any?
I do.
Sweet. We're going to do that. This is going to be
I don't
awesome,
know about that.
everybody. This is
We'll
going to
see.
be great.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. How was your day? Was your day good?
It was really good.
It was wonderful.
It was
Fantastic.
decent.
Did you stay warm?
I did. I was in training all day long inside of a building.
Do you want to tell everybody about our weather?
It is freezing outside.
As is most of the country, so I'm sure most everybody else is aware, but
How many records did we set today?
we set 3 different records today. Or yesterday, overnight, basically. So the record for yesterday was, the low was 14, and we hit 12 yesterday, I believe. So that was like right before midnight, I think. And then going all the way through to like 6 a.m. or something this morning, 6:30 this morning, the record low was 12, and we hit 8.
Yeah.
And then the record for a single-digit temperature was November 17th, I believe, and we hit our first single-digit temperature today, which is, what, the 12th, right?
Today's the 12th.
So, yeah, so we beat it by about a week.
You know what? I'm hoping that like we're going to get it all out of the way and then winter will be short.
I got a feeling this winter is going to be miserable.
Okay.
I keep seeing all my like friends down in like Georgia and Alabama and stuff like that, and they're like, it's so cold. I'm like, try being up here.
Yeah, try being
They're mad
nice.
because it's like 30.
Oh. We will be happy with that.
So, and then I got all my friends down in Southwest Florida that are all bragging about it being 84.
Nobody
Screw
likes
you
you.
guys. I'm going home.
All right.
Okay. Up next, we got our budget traveler, Teresa. All right. So we got Teresa Ward today, who's going to be our budget travel guest. Welcome, Teresa.
Hey guys.
We are super excited to have you. We've been wanting to do a budget episode for a while.
I am so excited to be here. Excited to talk about it.
We just met Teresa. We just met Teresa. For all of those that were missing that little tune from the beginning.
That we just bought a camper tune.
Yes. Brought to you by me.
Brought to you by Nicole.
So Teresa, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, let's see. I'm an author, international speaker. I do instruction. I'm a dream interpreter, and I'm new to podcasting as well. So I'm excited to be here. I've got a ministry called Above and Beyond, and we help people understand how God talks to them, specifically in dreams, but in a lot of other ways. And that's what I do.
Nice.
That is awesome.
What's your book? Have you written a book or you're working on
Yeah.
it?
No, it's called Gateway to Dreams: 3 Simple Steps to Dream Interpretation.
Nice.
That is awesome. Well, welcome to the world of podcasting.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here.
We'll have to put a link for her book
Yeah, we will.
on the
We'll put
bottom
it-
of the show page.
Yeah, you guys can check that out for sure. Well, that's so exciting. That's a lot of things.
It sounds much more impressive than it is.
I was going to say, does that ever get overwhelming?
No, it's all fun. So I have a dream job.
That was good. That was good.
That's a good deal. Good problem to have, right?
Yes.
So like when did you first decide that you were going to travel more or become a traveler?
I sort of stumbled into it. I've always loved traveling. I used to work for Universal Pictures and MCA Records, and they would take us on these extravagant, trips, sales meetings and things. And so I just fell in love with traveling then. And then I did direct sales for about 8 years and always won tropical vacations every year. And then now I travel internationally, and I kind of stumbled on that. I had gone through a divorce, and I was living, on a really limited budget right after the divorce about 5 years ago. And I was turning 50, and I thought, in about 30 years of marriage, let's see, it was about 27 years with them for 29, I had never had a birthday party.
Wow.
And I thought, you know what? I'm turning 50, and it's a big one, and I'm going to do something memorable. And so I just thought, I'm going to set aside about $500 to go somewhere. I don't even care if it's going to Europe for lunch and coming home the same day. Yes. I'm going to do something ridiculous. And that's what I did. I just had something pop up on my screen from a travel site, and it said Ireland, $400 and something. And I thought, I'm going.
Nice.
And it actually went through Iceland on the way there. That's when WOW Airlines was still in existence. And so I got to go through Iceland on my way to Ireland.
That's really cool.
But there and back. So that was my first, other than tropical vacations, to Mexico and Bahamas and stuff. That was my first international. No, that was my second international trip. The first one was to Africa years ago on a missions trip. But yeah, that was the first time I had gone by myself, that I had traveled by myself. And it was so much fun. I became addicted.
Wow. Do you do more solo travel, or do you do more group travel?
Well, now I do solo travel, being single, but also in ministry. So when I go to speak internationally, I usually get an invite and I'll stay with friends, or, they'll put me up at a hotel or something. But then I just stay longer because I can work from anywhere. So I'll usually, like if I go to Europe, I'll stay 3 months, as long as they'll let me stay there. And that's how I found how to stay cheap and, affordable, and to do a lot of really cool things. So, that's it turned into solo travel. I didn't plan it that way, but that's what it turned into.
Is most of your travel around ministry?
Most of it starts with ministry. It's usually, ministry is the reason I'm going somewhere, and then I just stay. And, so like when I was invited to speak in Paris, I stayed and went to 9 different countries, over the course of 3 months. And because Europe is so small, and it's so affordable to get from one country to the other because they're so close. Yeah. And you've got trains and you've got buses, and the airfare is so cheap in Europe. So you can fly around pretty quickly to a lot of different places.
I've had other people tell me that you can get around over there significantly cheaper than you can get around in the U.S.
Oh my goodness. There's like 2 airlines that are super cheap over there. And when I was in Italy one time, my friend was over there working, and so I had a free place to stay. And while they were, I know that never hurts. And while I was over there, they were working during the week. So I thought, where can I go cheap? What airline, where are they flying cheap this week? And I actually, out of Rome, went to Greece for $36 on a flight.
Very cool.
Each way. And then, so I went there for 3 days, and then I went from Pisa. I went to Barcelona, Spain for $16 on an airline.
That is amazing.
I know. It's ridiculous.
How long was the flight?
Like 30 minutes.
I was going to say, they must burn like no fuel or something like that to be able to fly you that cheap.
Well, I didn't know if we'd get there safely, but we got there safely. They sell so many super cheap seats, and once they're gone, they're gone. But I always just get on the websites and look to see what specials are running right now,
Right.
Do you have particular ways of finding the super cheap seats?
Say that fast.
If I can say that, yeah.
Super cheap sheets.
On their websites, you just go to their website and they'll be advertising specials.
So there's no particular tip, like it has to be on a Wednesday, or,
Sometimes they'll show you on the website. So they'll say fly, as low as $17 to Amsterdam, or, $72 to whatever, Switzerland or whatever. And from wherever you're at. And, you just kind of see what they have.
So there's no like super secret tip then. It's just basically
No,
look. Just go in there and look.
Just knowing that they exist, really.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So where do you, if you're not staying with your friends or things like that, where else do you stay when you're traveling?
I discovered the hostel world.
Yes.
So I never heard of a hostel. I know I'm kind of, I guess I'm old now. But I had never heard of hostels growing up. And in America, I don't think they're as popular. And people, if they're not exposed to international travel, most kids don't even know about it, or adults. And when I went to Ireland for my 50th birthday, I just went on to booking.com and started looking for cheap places to stay, because I was only going to stay the weekend, right? Just go for lunch, stay a day or two and come home. Ended up staying a couple of weeks because I on booking.com, it had, like $15 a night. And I'm like, what? How do you do this for $15? And I didn't know what a hostel was. And I started looking into it. And, it's basically a dorm. And you share a room with other people and you share bathrooms. And, but I found it's an amazing world. And I love going to hostels because, especially if you're traveling alone, you meet people from all over the world who are used to traveling. And there are tons of women, either young girls even, traveling by themselves. So you get tons of traveling tips from other people of where to go, where not to go. You get to go out to, everybody wants to get together and go out and do something together. So you don't really feel alone when you go to a hostel.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
I've been to a couple hostels in the U.S., but they all seem like it's mainly foreigners. So I don't think U.S. people utilize them like the foreign travelers do.
Well, I know before I spoke with Teresa about hostels, the only information I had about them was the movie Hostel, which if you guys have seen that.
Isn't that it's a horror movie, isn't
yes, it does not paint
that might
a good
be the other word, hostel.
does not
the hostels I'm talking about is STEL, not ILE.
Yeah. So, but once I started looking them up, they're really, really nice.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
And there are some that are really nice. Well, like I stayed in Barcelona and it was like an urban loft apartment. It was so cool. It was so secure, very high tech, very just really cool and clean, and just really trendy, and like 2 blocks from the beach, and right down the street from the Arc de Triomphe there, and just everything within walking distance. I mean, the thing I love about hostels is they're usually right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And you can walk to everywhere, or they have transportation, or they tell you how to get around.
I would say that's the only negative about hostels is if you want to try to stay somewhere outside of a city, then they get to be hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if you want to be in the action, it's the way to go.
Well, the thing that makes them convenient is it's, most of them are youth hostels. So you really do have to look at the fine print, because some of them you can't be over 25 or whatever. But a lot of people in Europe, I found, were using them as regular hotels. Like when I was in Greece, there was a lady there that was there for a job interview. And so she was staying at a hostel because hotels were too expensive. Mm-hmm. And it's just a night on a bunk bed, or whatever. And it's just a really great way to save money.
Yeah. I like the idea too of meeting people. I used to stay at like bed and breakfast places. So when I was married before, me and my husband, that was kind of our thing. We would, wherever we went, we would try to stay in a bed and breakfast, because you wake up in the morning, you have breakfast with everyone, you meet them.
Yeah.
And I loved that idea, but this would be a much cheaper way, because those are always kind of pricey. So that would be...
and what's interesting is I've only stayed at a bed and breakfast once, and I actually was always afraid to go because I didn't want to be forced to eat with a bunch of people. Yes. I wanted to kind of get up when I wanted to. And the good thing about hostels is, a lot of them offer what they call a free breakfast. Sometimes it's just toast, but other times they fix you an omelet or whatever. A lot of hostels have free breakfast, but you just get up when you want to. You don't have to all eat at the same time. Right. There it's kind of just like a buffet thing. And so I'm not forced to get up at a certain time and eat with people. If I don't want, and I don't have to get up at all.
Is there a cutoff for the breakfast?
Yeah, it's usually till 10 or 9 or something like that.
So it's
they
about
don't
like
want to
a
feed
hotel.
you. Well, it's because, you have a bunch of college kids, that are broke and starving. And so
Yes.
if you let them eat all day, they would eat all day,
Right.
Now, is it normally like all women in one hostel, all men in one, or how does that work, or is it?
Well, a hostel is usually just a building that's a bunch of rooms, and it's kind of like a college dorm sort of, but they have like all the rooms are different. So you can go on each website and see what they offer. Like sometimes they usually offer all women dorms, all men dorms, or mixed dorms. And even like if you get a specific, like I usually try to stay in an all women dorm when I can. They're not always available, but you can get like 4 to a room, 8 to a room, 12 to a room, and so, you can kind of pick the type of room you want. And a lot of hostels now, I've noticed it, at least in Europe, have private rooms you can rent. And they're still cheaper than a hotel, but you get a private room. Sometimes you still have to share a bathroom, but at least you get a private room.
Yeah, because that's what I was looking into. If you do a private room, it's roughly still about half of what a hotel would be in a big city. And all you got to really do is share a bathroom. And it's like, hey, half price.
Right, exactly. I've found them as cheap as, $25, $35, depending on the country.
Wow. That's for a single room? Or
for a private room,
for a private room?
Wow. Yeah, the sometimes they're 50, 65. And, if it gets more than that, then maybe Airbnb is a better choice, especially if you have more than one person to split the costs with. Because then when you don't have to share anything,
Yeah. Do you have a specific site that you like when you go to search for a hostel, or just kind of?
Yeah, so I use two, and I always check both because it seems like they're allotted so many rooms. And so sometimes for the same place, one will offer it cheaper than the other one. I use booking.com. They actually have a lot of hostels on there, but the site I use the most is hostelworld.com.
Okay.
And it's, I always check them both though. And then a lot of times after you check the site, if you will go directly to the hostel on their website and book, sometimes you can even get it cheaper.
Okay.
Nice.
Have you ever used Hosteling International?
No, I've never heard of it.
That's the one that I've used, yeah.
Wow, cool to know.
And I've noticed that Hostel World and Hosteling International seem like they have different ones. So I think Hosteling International has like agreements with like certain ones. And I think Hostel World or whatever it is has agreements with other ones. So if you're looking, you'll find different hostels in the same city and they're not listed. They might all be on Booking. I don't know. Booking might have them all.
Interesting.
I don't think so. I think there's been times. And then, if it's a chain type of hostel, because there's like Senior Frogs, that's a chain, and some other ones, Christopher or something, I can't remember, is all over Europe. If you go to their website directly, it's cheaper.
Interesting.
Nice. Very nice.
Senior Frogs like the bar?
Yeah. It's the same chain. Yeah.
They have hostels?
I stayed yes. They have one I just stayed at in Cancun last year this time, actually. I was I was in Mexico for a month, and I stayed at Senior Frogs. Super new, clean omelet breakfast. They have a bar there just for the people staying at that hostel. Really cool curtains around your bunks and lights, and really clean showers, really cool hangout. And they have a water slide that goes from the second floor into the ocean.
That's freaking cool. I like that.
It's so cool.
amazing.
And they've got the coolest like bar seats that look like, you're wearing a thong bikini bottom and swings and stuff. So there's some really cool hostels out there.
Yeah, we need to write that one down too.
Yeah, I got that. That's amazing.
And speaking of Mexico and cheap places, like I went on Airbnb and found these two guys that had like a 4-story house just north of Cancun, and I was going to work in Mexico, so I wanted my own room and my own bathroom and be left alone and stuff. It was literally across the street by at a private beach, nothing fancy, and there were little restaurants there. It was right by the naval base. It was very safe. And I was literally across the street from the beach, and it was $15 a day.
What?
Wow.
And yes, these two guys had like a 4-story home, and I had access to the whole house, but I had my own private room on the second floor. And they were so nice, and they could tell you, where to go, where not to go, and help you. If you stay with locals, it's so nice because they can tell you, a lot of hidden things that you wouldn't otherwise know.
So they were Mexican? Or
Yes.
were they American? They were Mexican. Okay.
They were Mexican, but they one of them spoke English. Yeah.
Very nice.
Amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I know, $15 a day. People, I stayed in Mexico for about $300 for a month. Well, you can't even rent an apartment here for that.
Yeah, right?
How many of us now are willing to sell our house? And
I know, right?
like that's
why
cheaper
I
than
haven't
rent.
bought another one yet.
Time
It's
to
like
start
I sold my
traveling.
house and I shoved my stuff in storage, and I've been traveling ever since. And
Yes.
couch surfing with family. And I actually have a place now, but I did for the first year. I traveled more than I was here. I mean, I was in Europe for 3 months. I was in Mexico for a month. I was in Hawaii for a couple weeks. I was, you can just kind of, if you have a job where you can work anywhere, it's really, you can find a way to, be somewhere else just as cheap as you can, staying put.
Yep.
That's amazing.
So how do you feel about Mexico in general? Do you think it's safe? I mean, recently we had those women and their kids that got killed there, I mean.
Yeah. Well, that happened in Charleston too. So, I mean, I feel
Very
like,
true.
Right.
There's some places in Mexico I certainly wouldn't go, but I think just having knowledge in advance of where to go and where not to go, and just being alert and, not doing anything stupid. Most places are safe. Most people are good. So
Yeah.
some people like to go out and not close to everything, but when you're traveling alone, sometimes there's safety in numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it too is a good idea to have those locals around you, because they're going to be able to tell you, you're staying here. This is not a good place. This is a good place. Or don't go here alone, but go here alone,
Right.
kind of guide
They
you.
That's exactly what they did for me too. They said, there's a little mart that's open 24 hours a day, and you're totally safe. This is a safe area. The military base is right here. You're fine, and
That's
it was great.
wonderful.
That's cool.
Yeah. So what about like attractions or excursions, like things to do? Do you have any ideas for cheap ways to do those?
Well, it depends on what you like to do. I have never found a problem just walking around and looking at stuff. It's been amazing, especially in Europe. There's so much to see and do. And, you can even just spend a little bit of money and go to really cool museums. In Spain, you could literally just, if you like architecture, just walk around and look at all the neoclassical architecture. It's amazing. And also Groupon. If you are when I go to Hawaii, I stay in a hostel 2 blocks off the beach in Honolulu. I can walk everywhere. I don't need to rent a car. The hostel will have free excursions. You tip the bus driver. But they'll take you to some of the sites, like seeing the turtles and doing different things. And you can, rent surfboards right from the hostel. They have free beach chairs. And I did go on to Groupon.com, the Groupon stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I found a catamaran sale for like $16,
Wow.
so you don't have to spend a lot of money to, I just have fun just walking around looking, or hanging out at the Hard Rock Cafe or, whatever,
Yes.
The beach, just give me sun.
I used to tell people all the time when the area's new, go into the grocery store is fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Just because everything's so
and some of
different.
and you don't even know how to check out.
Right?
In some of the countries. Talking about funky grocery stores, where was I? Oh, goodness. I think it was in Mexico. I went into this one grocery store, and they actually had pork rind booths and stuff that you could get, and just a lot of interesting. It's always fun to go into grocery stores. When I was in Italy, almost nobody spoke English, and I couldn't read the signs, and I was like, I don't know what that sign says, and I don't know how to pay for this. And and the Google app, there's a Google app that you can point your camera at a sign, and it will turn it into English for you, and you can read it.
And it's
Really?
accurate English?
Yes. And you can understand what you just point and shoot, and it reads it for you. It's called Google Translate. It's amazing.
See, I knew that they had Google Translate if you typed it in. I didn't realize
No,
it
they
worked
have the
with your
camera function.
I used to use like a translation app before, but it wasn't always super accurate. So I
No,
used
but
it with
it
people,
helps
and
in a pinch.
you could tell it
Yeah.
wasn't giving you the right words. Like, I don't think that's what she's saying.
Yeah. I always know how to say hello, goodbye, thank you, you're welcome, and where's the bathroom?
Right.
You know?
That's the most important.
Cerveza and baño. That's all you got to know.
Cerveza and baño.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
That is awesome. So speaking of food, where do you like? What type of food do you normally eat when you're out, or do you cook a lot? If you do stay at like an Airbnb, or do you like to eat out, or what do you do?
You know, I have been on such a limited budget since the divorce, and you know, because I'm turning the ministry around and having to, you know, change my whole life. So I have been on such a strict budget. I found a lot of creative ways. I don't, you know, I stay places that have free breakfast, so that's one meal,
Free's
you know,
the best.
included in the price, right?
Right.
And it depends on how long I'm going and where I'm going. So like when I went to Belize, I stayed in Belize for a month, and I stayed on the island. And so everything's expensive on the island, you know? So a lot of times when I'm traveling and food's expensive, or I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to get to a store or afford expensive food or whatever, I will actually bring like packets of oatmeal or ramen noodles or protein bars or something just for a pinch. And I also bring my own coffee, just like Starbucks instant or whatever.
Yeah.
And I bring a collapsible travel kettle. And as long as you can boil water, you can make ramen noodles, oatmeal, you know, coffee, tea, you know, those kinds of things. And that's 1 or 2 meals, you know. I will usually budget to, you know, eat locally. I always want to try local cuisine. And once or twice while I'm there, at least, you know, if I'm there for a week, I'll at least do one night at a really nice place. The other places, a lot of times I eat fast food. Most places in the world have McDonald's.
Right.
Yes.
You know, and sometimes, you know, it doesn't taste the same as our McDonald's sometimes.
They have different
But,
menus, right?
Yeah. Like when I was in Greece, they actually had burger pitas.
Right.
And, you know, it was funny. And in Israel, they had really weird food at McDonald's. And, you know, a lot of times they still have like the survey on the back of this sounds really cheap, but I have been in a pitch sometimes. So on the back of your receipt, if you fill out the survey, you know, you get a free burger or whatever.
Yeah.
And so keep your receipts, do the surveys, and then go back and get some free stuff.
That's a good tip, yeah. Because none of us ever do that. Everybody always throws the receipt away.
No.
I know.
That's so smart.
Get you a free burger.
Yeah, especially if you're going to be there for a month or something like that.
Yeah. And that's the point. It's like, you know, why throw that away? You know?
That's a good tip.
I love it.
I like that one.
Yes.
Even though
But
it's
usually
right in your
locally
face.
there's something affordable, you know, especially like in countries like Mexico or even in Belize, there was some really cool local food stands, you know, that only the locals knew about. So if you find out, you know, where to go, where's affordable, the locals have the best, you know, advice.
Local food is the best, isn't it? That's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to like, you know, saturate yourself into the culture. So,
Yep.
That's what I was thinking. That's just another way of experiencing where you are.
right.
You have to eat the food, of course, right?
Right.
Cool.
Yep.
What do you say like what are some of the biggest things that you get out of traveling?
Oh my goodness. I just have such an appreciation for people and for, I mean, the world. The world becomes so much smaller when you start traveling,
Yep.
you know, and just, I don't know. It's just so, I love meeting people. I mean, I have met people from all over the world and we are still friends. When I went on a mission trip in Mozambique one year, we were working at an orphanage there. There are 3 friends I met there's like 5 people I met on that trip alone that I am still friends with. People from Kentucky. I have great friends. They're almost like my best friends. They live in Australia. I have great friends that 2 different friends I met there that live in Switzerland, and I stayed with them when I travel.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You know, you really do make some connections when you travel. And it just seems like people make more of an effort to get to know when everybody's traveling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
People are busy when you're working day to day and they don't go out of their way to meet new people. But when you're traveling, you know, you're intentionally wanting to meet new people.
Yeah, it's amazing how you won't make an effort to get to know your neighbor, but then if
I
someone's
know.
traveling from out of the country, you're like, hey, you want to come over for dinner? Or...
I talk to my friends, in Australia more than I do my ones in Illinois or whatever.
Well, I was thinking that so we met Teresa at the podcast movement that we went to the conference. And I felt like
Orlando.
I talked to so many people there. Like,
yeah.
And you're right. You don't talk to people every day here, but you go to one conference for 4 days and you talk to 100 people.
I know. Or awesome. It's amazing.
We made more friends at that conference than we probably made in like 4 years here locally.
And you have something in common. And that's the same thing that happens at like hostels. You have that in common.
Yeah.
I mean, and hostels used to be youth hostels, but now it's people of all ages. It's just like just a travel community. And
Well, I was telling Nicole this story about when I stayed at a hostel and I met this Italian couple and they didn't really speak hardly any English. And he comes up to me in the hallway and he holds out his hand and he's got a quarter, a dime, and a nickel in it. And he goes, which bigger? And I pointed at the quarter. He goes, okay, which next? And I pointed at the dime and he goes, why this bigger? Pointing at the nickel. And I was like, I've never thought about it and I don't know why. And we ended up hanging out with them for 2 days, and they were the coolest people ever. And we just had the best time with them. And never would I have ever struck up a conversation with this guy in a normal circumstance. But
right.
I mean, it was just it was so amazing the wonderful time we had with them.
One of the most I know we talk about in previous podcasts just about not waiting till you retire to do all this traveling. Because you might not be able to, first of all, and then just all this life experience that you'd miss, all these people that you miss, and then you wouldn't be able to go see them and stay with them in California or wherever if you wait until the end of your life,
Right.
So when you're traveling, do you ever limit technology, or do you ever kind of turn off some devices, or?
It depends on if I'm there for work. I always usually have to work at some point while I'm somewhere, so I have my laptop, but I always keep it locked up, and when I'm out and about, I keep my phone for necessity. But I have my Apple Watch too, so I don't have to pull my phone out, and it'll let you know, if you need to look at it or if you've got an important message, or it's got the walking GPS on it. So if you don't look totally stupid, you don't know where you're going, if you can just kind of look down at your watch like you're looking at the time. Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. What about a bucket list? Do you have a bucket list of
Oh
places
my
that you want to go?
Yeah, the whole world. Yeah, I'm seriously. So I have some top 10. I would say top 3, but I couldn't limit it to 3. I really want to go to Thailand, and they have got some ridiculously cool hostels there. It looks like. I've never been, but I've heard it's so affordable. If you can get over there from America, but and it's so beautiful, and it's your dollar goes so much further, and it's just tropical and beautiful. I love warm places, so I would love also to go to Argentina, South Pacific, New Zealand, Australia. But I really just want to go. I want to try everywhere. I want to hit all 7 continents, hopefully.
And
you will meet crazy people at these hostels. I met one girl. She was from Germany, and she was early 20s, and she'd been to 43 countries.
Wow.
And they work, and they just go on their holiday. Their holidays are longer than ours, you know? So, and they just hit, it is easy to see a lot if you can stay on a continent for a while, or a country. If you go to Europe, you have so many countries you can hit in a couple of days. And if you go to South America, you can hit a few countries, and, so.
Wow. Yeah, I feel behind.
I know. So do I.
And you've actually been to Australia already, though?
No, I haven't. Okay. I just got another email message from my friends there, because they, come stay with us. You don't have an excuse, Yeah. But I'm I just need to carve out 30 hours for the flight.
That's the whole problem, and the flight's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So that's one of my big things is Australia and New Zealand. That's one of my big ones.
Would you ever be open to teaching someone how to travel on a budget, i.e. me?
In what way? Of course, I love to share anything I know with people. I'm a teacher by nature, so I love sharing, just what I know thus far. And, there's so many people that have such great knowledge out there about this.
Sure. Because it really is it's kind of like a hidden gem itself, right? Like,
yeah, it is. I've learned so much just from a few Facebook pages. I told you about one of them.
Yeah.
And if you go to like travel pages or, where people are traveling all the time, there's some apps too you can get for like travel buddies or, and you can not only, a lot of the girls that do this, will say, hey, I'm going to be in this country on this date. Is anybody else going to be there? And they meet up and they stay together and, so you don't have to be alone.
So do you ever feel like you are like sacrificing things by doing budget travel?
Yeah. I mean, of course, I've experienced really nice travel as well. Like 5-star, I've stayed at the Ritz and I've stayed in the bush of Mozambique. So I do prefer, but I love it all. I appreciate it all.
I was thinking, does the fact that you actually get to go, does that outweigh the fact that it's not 5-star,
Yeah, absolutely it does. And the other thing is now, even if I had the money to stay at a 5-star, I don't know that I would want to waste it now that I know how cheap, because like a hostel is really just for people that just want to bunk for the night. You're not spending all the time in your room. Like if you want to spend a lot of time in your room, then I would get a nicer place. But, if you're going to be out exploring all day or hiking all day or whatever, why pay for the hotel? Why waste money? All that money could be spent for souvenirs or more excursions or nicer dinners or, so it can make your money go a lot farther.
I tell people that all the time about like hostels. I'm like, if you want to explore and you're like on the go and wanting to do things all the time, there is absolutely no reason to stay at a hotel. Stay at a hostel. If you want to, get a private room, but stay at a hostel and save the money because you're never going to be there. All you're doing is sleeping. You sleep and you leave. That's it.
Right.
Do you have any like advice for anyone that might be kind of on the fence about traveling alone or traveling to a hostel, using a hostel when traveling, or female or male, either one, but traveling alone? Do you have any kind of advice?
I would say you just got to have the guts to do it one time and choose a really nice hostel, a pretty good hostel the first time so that it's not so weird, because I just would never have guessed that they existed or how easy it was or how, you think it's going to be awkward because I don't know anybody. But everybody's like that when they're there. I mean, sure, there's a lot of people that do travel together with a group of friends or whatever, but there's so many people that are by themselves and everybody's in the same boat. So you're all in it together. And a lot of the hostels provide entertainment. They have pool tables. They have, games and pub tours, pub crawls or whatever, if that's your thing. Free walking tours every day or whatever. So there's just, I just think it is uncomfortable the first time because you don't know what to expect. But once you've experienced it, you're just like, why didn't I do this 20 years ago?
Yeah.
So just do it then.
Just do it, or find a friend that'll do it with you one time, because that's kind of what happened to me. So I was going by myself on my birthday that one year, and I had planned to go by myself. I bought my ticket, I booked my room, and then my videographer that shoots video for me when we do stuff on the streets and stuff, he always wanted to go to Iceland, and I told him my flight was going through Iceland. He goes, "Are you kidding me?" And I told him how cheap it was. And he goes, "I'll go shoot video for you." And he stayed at a different hostel, but I had him to hang out with. So I felt, a little bit safer. But once I did it and we stayed at separate hostels, so I was really there by myself at my hostel, I thought, oh my God, this is no big deal. And if you pick good hostels, like read the reviews of what people say about the staff and stuff, because the staff really makes it. And if they're really nice and stuff, they will make you feel at home. Like they're really, they know you're probably uncomfortable if you've never stayed there before, and they tell you about everything, and they just are really welcoming. And then there's some that, they're stuck up and mean. And just read the reviews, know?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a bad question, I guess. Have you ever had problems with bed bugs in a hostel?
Never.
Because I know that's another stigma that everybody thinks, like, oh, you go stay in a hostel, you're going to get bed bugs.
No, they actually are super clean, most of them. And again, stay at a fairly decent one. Don't stay in one that's, right next to the club and it's got, in a dark alley. But there, for the most part, there's people coming and going every single day. So they're constantly cleaning. They, always you put on your own sheets a lot of times. Sometimes they have the sheets on there for you, but like everything's constantly being cleaned and, I have this is how awesome this was. So I was staying in Belize for a month and my bed was not that comfortable. It was a mattress that really kind of had gotten wore out. And so there was like a couple springs that were like in my back. And I went down and told the manager and they went and bought a new bed.
Really?
And replaced it. Yeah. They replaced the bed the next day.
Oh, that's
wow.
So wonderful.
Yeah. So,
wow.
And you can always ask to change rooms or change beds or,
I was going to say, try that at your next hotel and see if they do that for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Motel 4.
They got at a hotel. You can't even get them to do anything for you anymore, man.
Yeah.
They're like, sorry, that's the way it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. That is wonderful. That's a lot of good information. This is exciting.
So our last couple segments are our hidden gem segment and our don't do that. So for today's hidden gem, do you have a hidden gem?
All of them.
All of the above.
All of what she just said.
I think one of the biggest surprises I had, only because I hadn't planned on going there, so I didn't have an expectation, was in Belgium. Bruges, especially Bruges, Belgium. I had never even heard of Bruges. I was kind of, the only one probably on the face of the planet that hadn't heard of Bruges. But it was such a beautiful, quaint, city in Holland, and like windmills, and like it looked like you were back, and just back in time, and just very safe, very clean, tons of chocolate and pastries, and if you liked beer, the most beer of any other country in Europe, they claim. And just, it was just amazing. It was just really beautiful, and a hidden, waterways, and it was just really beautiful. So I would say Bruges is probably the number one thing that comes to mind. But there's so many beautiful places.
Is that spelled Brugge, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah,
and Antwerp was amazing. I loved Antwerp. But a lot of people know about Antwerp. But
this Bruges place looks amazing.
It's so beautiful. And it was cheap. They had the most amazing hostel there. Crazy, though. They have steep stairs. And, you're carrying your bags up and there's, the stairs go straight up. And but we ended up getting like a little apartment in this. I was with a friend from Paris and we went for the weekend and we got an apartment for $25 a night. At the hostel, and like a lot of the hostels have their own restaurants, their own bars. It's because they want people to stay and be safe, and so a lot of them, they had their own restaurant and their own bar in there.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it was really cool.
Okay, and our last segment is today's don't do that.
Well, I don't have a specific don't do that, but I do have a couple tips to make sure you're aware of, just be aware of the country you're going to and what some of the rules are for traveling. And for instance, there's a couple really, like I said earlier, a couple cheap airlines in Europe, but they're very strict on their policies. And like one of them, you have to have a printed boarding pass. If you don't, it's a $50 fine. If they do measure and weigh your bags, and they are very strict with that because the planes are so small and there's no room. And so, if it's an inch over, it's probably not getting on, or if it's a pound over, you're probably going to pay an extra $100. And so you have to be careful about that. And then the other thing, just to know, what the country's like. So in Europe, a lot of places, and in South Africa even, they don't do dryers. So, know that if you go over there and you need laundry done, make time for your clothes to dry overnight, or, find a place that does have, you can pay to have it dried or something. So
don't expect to wash your clothes and wear them within an hour.
right. We are so, especially for Americans. I mean, like for those listening, if you're in America, we are so spoiled. We have everything at our convenience and usually pretty darn cheap.
Yeah.
And we have Walmarts on every corner, and it's just not like that everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting. Like in Europe, it's so old and they don't buy groceries in bulk like we do here. You know, they buy today's groceries. And they're usually climbing a bunch of stairs to get to their apartment or whatever. And there's little bitty markets, like in France, there's little bitty markets every couple blocks and they only have like 2 aisles and they only carry the necessities and you just buy what you need for today.
That's what I was going to say. Everybody generally buys stuff kind of on the way home, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. Okay. So if people out there want to learn more about Teresa, where do they go?
Gatewaytodreams.com is my website, and everything's on there. I mean, how to sign up. We just have a link on there for the book, and we'll be offering new classes soon and stuff for dreams if they're interested. And we should do a segment, your dream vacation.
Yes.
Ooh, that sounds good.
That could be a recurring segment on the show.
Yeah, right. We got to have you guys on.
Yeah.
Because I know you have dreams. So
everybody does, right?
Yeah. Whether they remember them or not, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That was Teresa Ward with GatewayToDreams.com and Gateway to Dreams, the podcast, and Gateway to Dreams, the book. I like that because it makes everything simple for us.
Yes, just go to gatewaytodreams.com. You can get it all.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you guys want to hear us get our dreams interpreted, that was what was on the end of this podcast. And what we decided to do is cut it off so that way we would shrink this podcast up a little bit. If you just want to hear about the travel part of it, then you get to hear about that now. And if you want to hear me and Nicole have a couple of dreams interpreted, you can go to our bonus episode called We Get Our Dreams Interpreted.
It's very interesting. You don't want to miss it.
It's very interesting, yeah. So I think everybody will like it, but, it's not necessarily travel related, so we thought we would break it up and make it into a bonus episode. So I think what we're going to do is this episode will come out on this Friday is what we're shooting for, right?
Yes, the 15th.
So, okay, I guess they don't know what we're talking about.
November 15th.
So, yeah, this episode will come out on the 15th, and then I think what we'll do is have the bonus episode come out on that Wednesday, and then it'll be followed by a regular episode that Friday again.
Yeah.
So, the bonus episode isn't as long, and I don't think it should necessarily take up a week.
Yes, for sure. And we're going to put links to all of the hostel websites that she told us about.
Yep.
We'll have a link to her website as well.
Hosteling International, Hostel World. There's a couple other ones too, so we might throw a couple other ones on there too. Who knows?
Yeah, and maybe that hostel from Cancun. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
the Senor Frogs
that.
hostel.
That sounded amazing.
That thing looks cool. If you guys want to check that out, it's Senor Frogs in Riviera Maya.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
So it's very cool. We looked it up. It's amazing. So
yeah.
Go check it out. Thank you for listening. We don't have any new shout outs this week.
No, let us know if any of you guys have done any cheap travel as well.
Cheap travel or any hostel travel, yeah, that would be great. Let us know what your experience was like, how you liked it, and if you might like to be on the show, let us know, and maybe we can have you on an episode.
Yep. All right.
So, and that's all we got this week. We love all you. Keep listening. We appreciate everything that you do.
Yes, for sure. We make the show for you.
That's right. So, we'll be back on Wednesday, and then we'll be back next week.
All right.